Welcome to another episode of Maestro Speaks podcast.
The equivalent of love is forgiveness. You cannot love without forgiveness.
Lumabalin ka iti yung generation anda kumamot nga mapasaran.
Naibag nga morning mo ako Il Maestro.
Tanya deh kung nanay tayo may isa.
I-appeal mo.
Buhayin.
Apil ko man ka iti ko.
Pipi ako man pilit ganun tutok na.
Di pa nag-approach mo rin?
Amo pa.
Approach?
Ita. Nang nangag ko nga ibagbagan ka lang ni Lola kiti.
You better know the substance of the law.
Bayaw mo nang ibagas ni Manong.
And who cares if people have dark skin, right?
Kaanakan iti with expiration.
You find any inspiration in this we have done, and you have done your noble part.
Maestro Speaks podcast.
Hello everyone, good evening, good morning, and good day, whatever time you're going to listen to this podcast. So, yeah, just the backgrounder. What happened today? Supposed to be, we'll be having a conversation with one of the counselor of, let me check my audio first. Hello, test. All right, one of the counselor of Baguio City, Honorable Counselor Vladimir Cayabas. So, we talked about setting a time, and we agreed we'll be meeting at 6:30 at his school at NIIT. But then some equally important things came out, and he has to attend to it. That's why maybe soon in the future we'll be having conversation with him. So I'm trying to maintain the consistency of uploading episodes here in this podcast bi-weekly, and those times that we won't be having conversations with those great people here in our nation, here in our locality, and we'll be talking about some of our histories and things about Igorots, and sometimes some controversial current events. Anyway, so that's what happened a while ago. So anyway, I went there, and I'm hoping that we can have the conversation with him by next week. Again, if his time is available. Anyway, yeah, good luck to good luck to Honorable Vladimir Kayabas. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having conversation with you. Fortunately, let's see if we can have it in English, but for sure it will be in our dialect or Taglish, a mixture of different language. The reason for that, and I'm sorry for those who are listening overseas, and they would like to know the topics we'll be talking about, especially for those Igorots that grew up in the foreign lands, and they want to listen to these great people here in the Philippines, the Igorot nation. I'm trying to maybe sometime in the future we can um, do some podcast clips with subtitles so that you can understand the stories or the message on the conversation. That we'll be doing that in the future. All right, so like what the title said here, okay, we'll be talking about Januario Galut. But before that one, just a background. So most of us maybe probably and have seen the movie 300, and accordingly that's the real story, that not the movie. Of course, there are some blemishes in the movie, especially so what's the director of the movie? I think it was done by Zuckerberg, right? But we all know that if it was made into a movie, there's this attempt to like put some twist on the real events so that it will become palatable. How's that palatable? It would appear more entertaining to the audience. So well, we all know that the focus of making a movie is to entertain people. That is the reason why. Now, in the movie, or in the story of the 300, King Leonidas, together with his 300 soldiers, went to Thermopylae to meet the Persian army who is trying to conquer them, right? So it's just 300 of them, and because they were so good at using the location of the battle, the first days of the battle is going for them, not until till the um one character betrayed them and led the Persian to a secret passage, and that's when they lost the battle, right? Now, I don't know if there's some similarities, but let's go locally. There was this young general in the person of Gregorio del Pilar being chased by American army while they are retreating in the mountainous area of the Cordillera, and he stayed at Tirad Pass together with his 16 men to cover the retreat of the president of the republic back then, none other than Emilio Aguinaldo. So the Americans is closely comparable to the story of the 300. Americans are also having a hard time winning the fight against this 60 men with a young general because of the terrain. Until one, they call it Januario Galut, and according to historians, is Atingian Igorot, led them to a passage where they can go up the mountain where the Filipinos are hiding. And that's how they won the war. I mean, the battle against that young general. So in the history book, Wanario Galut, okay, highlighted as Igorot, is a traitor, right? So just like I said, just it is so comparable to the story of the 300. So if you're looking for a localized, story, it's comparable to the 300, you found it with the story of Gregorio del Pilar, though Gregorio del Pilar is not a king. But what happened is exact. It's like the same. It's comparable. So um, I would like to give to the listeners, to you guys, my point of view of this thing that happened and why I would not consider Onario Gallup, regardless of if he's an Igorot or not, because there are some accounts here. I I would encourage everyone to go to Igorot H blog. I don't know who the writer of this one is, but he laid out, or the author laid out an account about who Onario Gallup is. But according to the Philippine official history, he is a Tingyan Igorot. But there are some claims claiming otherwise. And then I want you to read about this so you can have a sense of who Wenario Gallup is. Well, anyway, I would like to give you my opinion about this one also. And we'll be taking also into, like, we'll try to see, based on my own perspective, a same comparable incident that happened. If you remember, I had a podcast here about the Battle of Caloocan, wherein some Bontok Igorots participated in it. Participated in a way. They were forced to, but they did not. They hid and then they came back home. Now, looking at it as a person, as a Filipino, you would say that, oh my goodness, those Igorots are traitors. We can say they're traitors because they did not fight for the freedom of the country. Now, uh, and another one here, another Igorot traitor, Januario Galut. Though, like I said a while ago, there are some claims saying that he is not an Igorot. Regardless, I would like to give my perspective in this um, story. So, uh, I would like us to just put ourselves in their time. Let's travel back in time and let's just imagine what's happening back then. Their time is the time wherein highways were not created. There are some roads leading to places from places to places, but um, it's difficult to travel from places to places during that time. Okay? Maybe they have some automobile, but not all have the privilege of traveling from one places to another using automobiles or on horseback. Filipinos, normal Filipinos back then traveled by foot. So um, it would take them days to reach places. Newspapers back then are not readily available. If it's available, it's only in the cities, like most probably in Manila, which is the center of business during those times, maybe in lowlands um, and other areas, but not in the mountains. Yeah. So, as a normal, I mean, common Filipino back then, you are not thinking about the nation as a whole as compared to right now, wherein even teenagers, 16, 17, at that young, are now so immersed with the national issues of our country. And that's good. It shows signs of development. But during those times, that's not the case. So, um, common Filipinos back then, in different places, have their own different problems. Here in the Cordillera, um, especially those in the areas of the warring tribes, uh, people are wary about their other tribal neighbors. Okay. They're wary about what they're going to eat later on. They're wary about where they can hunt. That's what I'm thinking during those times. Okay, for a normal Filipino back then, that would be your priority. Okay, so now here comes this um conquerors, okay, trying to invade the nation, and they have the knowledge of one country, one nationality, one government leading the country. Okay, now they're trying to come here, and here comes this people from the city who's trying to fight off those people. Now, I would guess that while they were going from places to places, this Katipuneros was being called by the Bontok Igorots in the account of the Battle of Caloocan. They call the Tagalogs or the people from Manila, led by Emilio Aguinaldo, the Katipuneros. I would guess that they have tried their best to explain what is nationalism to these people of the mountains and maybe have convinced them to join them in their effort of fighting off these invaders. Okay? Maybe some would have agreed and joined them, and some did not. Okay? Now, we should have to put into consideration here that as human, there's different layers for personality in one human, right? And it differs from one person to another. So that's what's happening during this time. Okay. Another one is that you have to you have to consider the fact that people living in the lowlands that were Christianized or Hispanized, I mean, they already adopted the way Spanish talk, the way of life of the so-called modern era, um, dressed differently than the people in the mountain. Now, the difference between the person living in the city and the person living in the mountains during that time is so great. Okay, so great. You can see the difference just by the way they wear their clothes. And of course, unlike today, sometimes they cannot understand each other's language, right? Because people in the lowlands speak Tagalog or Spanish. And in the highlands, there are like hundreds of language for each tribe. You know, those are the differences that you have to like uh, um, face when you're trying to convince these people from the mountain to join you in your effort for the war. All right? Again, that's the scenario. Common people back then may will not necessarily worry about who's like invading the country. They're worrying about what they are going to eat later on, where they can hunt, where they can get their food, where they can get gold, so they can have some gold to use in buying goods from the lowlands, things like that. Okay. Now, I would like to go to the movie, um, the Goyo Batang General, and I commend the movie for like showing the reality of human nature, and that's what we call discrimination. Yeah, we have to admit, okay, uh, that the Katipuneros or the Tagalogs greatly discriminated the people on the mountains. There's one scene in that movie where they drove away those people wearing bahag, telling them to like hide your tail and go run up in the mountain. One scene only. We just don't know how often did that happen in real life. And I would think that happened a lot. Now, I would say that it's normal to happen because for someone who doesn't understand other people's language, okay, that is usually the resort. You resort to, teasing, to, telling them because they don't have the same clothes as you have. You resort to doing or to discriminating them. So that happened. Okay. It's a short scene in the movie, but I would say it happened a lot in real life. So if you're that eager being discriminated by these Katipuneros, I would say you would hate them. I would think. Yeah, and I will not blame them if they will hate the Katipuneros or the Tagalogs fighting for the freedom of the Philippines. Okay, I wouldn't blame them. They would hate them for that because you're just going there doing your business, and some people will do that to you. What would you feel, right? So to some people, there must be some hatred against this or to this Katipuneros going up the mountains, hiding away from the Americans. Now, for the Americans, I think there's the same treatment that they did for the to the Igorots, but I would say they are more curious about the way these people on wearing G-string live, that they like treat them fairly, fairly in the sense that you did not abuse them, things like that. And instead, they use them as what we're calling the cargadores. Cargadores are the ones carrying baggages, going up the mountain. Okay. A lot of Igorots are cargadores back in the American times. That's their main job, main source of living. Now, if you are that person, and like I said a while ago, your priority during that time is to find the next meal, I would go to that person who is treating me well, asking me to do job for him in return for some food. Okay. That's again, it's human nature, right? So here's the scenario. And again, I'm not a historian, but I'm just sharing you the opinion that I have here. Okay. So probably, okay, maybe Januario Galut on January, something like that. Januario Galut experienced some of that, and he preferred to side with the Americans. That is one possibility. We don't know because there's no written account about it. What was written is that he led these American soldiers to a passage where they can have an advantage to the position of the Filipino soldiers. That's the account. That's the only account. So there's no account of his life before, but just trying to put it into perspective, I would say that's one possibility. So he probably experienced, or probably he saw some of his some of the villagers or his friends being he saw some of his friends abused by the Katipuneros, or stories circulated among them, and that is why they sided with the Americans. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that, like I said a while ago, the priority is food. Probably is one of the cargadores hired by the Americans to carry their ammo, their food supplies, while chasing the Filipino soldiers or the Katipuneros during the time. And of course, being a cargador or a baggage carrier, you will know routes around the mountain. You will familiarize yourself on the different routes to going towards the mountain. So he's probably thinking that it is still a part of his job to guide them to that secret passage where the Americans can gain an advantage against the Filipino. One probable, one possibility of Maybe that's the reason why he led the Americans to that passage and why he was called the traitor. So, doing that, I would say that doing that, guiding the Americans to that secret passage, would not make him a traitor because we do not know what is in his mind when he led these Americans to that passage. Again, probably it's just because of food, probably because of hatred for what the Philippines did. Two reasons. Okay. Next, another reason is that he is maybe intimidated, and this was discussed in the Igorot Age of Blood post. He is intimidated. Probably, um, Igorots doesn't have this modernized weapon, guns, artillery, and probably they saw or they heard how powerful the weapons of the Americans are, and he saw it. He saw it himself. They're carrying rifles. Okay, fighting against this kind of weapon is to him impractical. So he's intimidated. He has no choice but to lead them because maybe he's thinking of maybe if I will not follow them, they can easily kill me. It's another reason. So I wouldn't say it's a betrayal, but that's how it was actually uh, when I cannot remember the book I was reading back then, and it was actually used the word traitor. There's another Tagalog Filipino word for that one was actually used, which is equated to traitor. Was actually used for that one. Again, those are the reason. And I would commend Chua, um, the historian Shao Chua, for like opening this discussion up so that we can talk about it's what's happening back then. We really have to bring ourselves back into that place so that we can think. Okay, we'll try to put ourselves in that timeline so we can try to see how they think and analyze what's happening back then that made them do that decision. Okay, it's the same with the Igorots back in the Battle of Caloocan during the Spanish-Philippine War. Um, if it is recalled that they did not fight, instead they hid until the fighting is done, and then they went back home. Okay, that's when they saw some Katipuneros, and this is the one I cannot forget. That's when they saw some of the Katipuneros like burying some of their ammos and then telling their captains, the commanders, that they're out of ammos. You know, because I think they see that they're losing the battle. Now, to some maybe, especially in this age, they would say that that's being a coward, okay, or a traitor to your country. But again, people back then are so tribal, okay, that they only think of their tribe. They don't think they don't think of the whole nation. They think of their tribe. After that, they think where their tribe can eat. Right now, the reason why they go or they went to Manila is that they were duped when the general that came to their place said that they will be going to Manila for a cultural presentation. And that's not the case. They will be going there for war. But when they went to, I think that's in Tarlac, somewhere there in the lowland, their Katipuneros were distributing rifles to them. And the account said that this is not one Igorot said, this is not our war, this is our Katipuneros war. By that statement alone, they don't have, they have no sense. I mean, it was not explained to them the principle of nationalism, that you are fighting for the freedom of the entire Philippines. It was not explained to them, I would say. So, do I call them a traitor? No. I would call them ignorant, but it is what it is. Okay, and we have to accept that they are ignorant, right? And that can be cured by education. Being ignorant can be cured by education, and I would say they were ignorant about nationalism, sense of nationalism, having to gain freedom, you know. So, and that is understandable. They are in the mountain. They don't have education. They're living primitively. So, what else can you expect, right? They would be good to people who did good things to them. That's how it is, you know. So, I would like to, as an Igorot, I would like us to just like say, stop calling Januario Galut a traitor, though there are some claims here that he is not an Igorot. Okay, I really don't care about that. But Igorot or not, I would prefer not to call him a traitor of history. There was one video documentary about the traitors of history, and he is included in that list. I would say that he is not a traitor. Okay, I would prefer to say that he just doesn't understand why the Filipinos are fighting the Americans back then, and he wants to have the next meal on his table, and maybe that's why he did that. There's a lot of layers to this, lot of possibilities of why he did this. But being a trader, because being a trader, you have to understand what is happening there. And I can assure you that he does not understand what's happening back then, right? Maybe some of you will be saying, "What in the movie? They think it's the same in Goyo, just the same. There was this Igorots who helped the Katipuneros. They joined the Katipuneros in helping in fighting the Americans. Maybe they did for the reason that they have another agenda. Maybe they joined the Katipuneros because maybe the Katipuneros promised them that if you join our cause, we will help you fight the other tribal tribes in your area. Still, they're still thinking tribal during that time. There's no sense of nationalism. They still don't know. The idea of a country is still unknown to them. So you cannot be a traitor if you don't know that. Okay, I will accept the fact that yeah, the those categories are modernized back then. They know more than our ancestor back then. But it is what it is. Okay, they were more advanced. Okay, more educated, and still our ancestors are not yet educated, and that is the reason why they cannot be called traitors. Okay, even if Wanaria or Galut is not, or is not an Igorot, I would still say that he is not a traitor. There's layers again, reasons that we don't know, but those are the possibilities. For the Igorots in the Battle of Caloocan, it's the same. Like again, I said, with that statement alone, they said that this is not our battle. These are the battles of the Katipuneros. The idea of having one country is unknown to them. The only country they know is their village back in the mountains. That's it. So again, you cannot call them a traitor because they still don't have that in them. The idea of having country. I mean, that's what I mean. So, you know, those things happened. uh, well, history. Okay. History has already branded them as a traitor, but it's a nice avenue for discussion to see what really happened here. You know, they have the reason of doing things, and um, just to like also emphasize that there are also Katipuneros who did something that when we're looking at it, it is an act of treason. Okay, the likes of Pedro Paterno, which was called the Balimbing, like a um, two-faced Filipino, two-faced person, for siding on whoever has the upper hand. Like he sided with the Spanish, and then later on transferred, I mean, went to the Katipuneros, and then later on with the Americans. And we don't know his reason. And again, in my perspective, it is. I would understand that it is for survival, right? So, like I said, those things happened in the past, and it's kind of nice to look at it now with a different view and try to challenge the one that was written in the history book, not because we want to change it, but as an avenue of discussion. Well, this again, Maestro Speaks, and I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast while maybe you're commuting or maybe doing things around the house, you're studying. Thanks so much for listening. And by the way, this podcast is brought to you by DEMS Auto Performance, located at Alapang, Trinidad, Benguet. It's also brought to you by St. Lucie Multi-Purpose Cooperative. For those who are listening in La Trinidad, they have their office at Wayside Pugis, just beside the oil bank. And of course, it was also brought to us by JTech Repair Center at Kubo Building, Abatan, Pugyas, Benguet. And of course, it was brought to us by Monofloor's Egg Poultry, located at Mankayan and Size Space there. For more details, you can check their Facebook page. And this sponsors here are the ones keeping our podcast alive. Thank you so much. And I'll be seeing you again in the next episode.